Hello. What should risk management be about? I'm going to talk about two or three different things today. Not all about risk management and how to do it, but some important issues that I think that a lot of practitioners and other people involved in risk management are not thinking about, and perhaps should take this into consideration. And I want to start with some very basic principles, going back to the beginning as to what exactly is it we're talking about when we're talking about risk and the management of risk. If we look at the two primary frameworks or guidance or standards, let's take Koso first. Risk is a possibility that events will occur and affect the achievement of objectives. Note that, the achievement of objectives. ISO 31000 talks about risk as being the effect of uncertainty on objectives, the achievement of objectives. And that's the first thing I want to point out, which is both of these standards or frameworks talk about risk in terms of how it will affect how the business goes about achieving its objectives. And yet, a lot of practitioners, they quantify it and they put it in terms of dollars, amount of loss. I don't think that is necessarily getting us to where we need to go, where we need to be helping the organization be successful, because we are not focusing on the achievement of objectives, we're focusing on a dollar number. And now we're leaving it up to board members and top executives to figure out, okay, now, is that something we want to take? Is that something good? Is that something bad? Is that something we need to, how much do we need to worry about it? Whereas in fact, if we put it in terms of how something might affect our ability to be successful as measured by the achievement of objectives, maybe we're going to be moving a little bit closer in terms of communicating with them and helping them understand why this is important. Oh, and if you're thinking about, well, I'm talking more about cyber and technology risk. Well, let's take technology. A lot of people in the technology space, especially IT auditors, go by COVID. What does COVID have to say about risk? They talk about it in the context of achieving objectives. Maybe you're in the cyberspace. Well, what does the NIST standard say? The guidance on risk management? Well, actually, it talks about the achievement of objectives and the success of the organization. So I think that's the first thing that I'll point out, which is that what we're trying to do with risk and risk management is not manage the risk, it's to manage the business. And we need to be able to help people do that, help people achieve success, achieve objectives. And then how do they do that? They do that by making decisions. And that's the other part which I want to focus on today. It's not only about, as the National Standards Institute of Ireland says, back in 2009, where they were providing guidance on the previous version of 31,000, we want to increase the likelihood of achieving objectives. And not only by managing threats and potential losses, but being ready to take advantage of opportunities. And a lot of risk practitioners ignore that second part, and they only focus on the first, the potential for loss. And yet we will never succeed if all we are doing is avoiding failure. We will never succeed if all we're doing is watching for things that could go wrong. We've got to be able to recognize when things could go better, and we've got to also be able to see the big picture, all the things that might happen together, not just one risk at a time, but looking at all the things that might affect the business, the achievement of its objectives, and bring those into play when making an informed and intelligent decision. And yet Deloitte, when they did this survey a few years ago, unfortunately they haven't updated it, but I can't believe it's changed. Looking at other surveys, they found that only 13% of top executives really believe that risk management is helping them achieve their business strategies or objectives. And that's because we're not talking the business language. We're not trying to understand how they need to use that information. If we don't understand how people need to use our information, how do we know we're giving them the information they need? How do we know that we're actually helping them make decisions if we don't know what decisions they're making and what information they need in order to make informed and intelligent ones? And so we give them a risk register. Now, how does this help anybody make a decision? How does this do anything other than, as my friend Jim DeLoach would say, manage a list of risks? You're managing a list of risks. You're not managing the business. You're not managing, is the strategy working? Should we change the strategy? Should we build more resilience into the organization because of the potential for surprises in general, because that might affect our ability to be successful and achieve our objectives? Or a heat map. What does this mean? I don't think this actually means anything. It just says, oh, there's an open manhole cover over there. Well, let's avoid that. Well, maybe that's the right approach. Maybe it's not the right approach. And maybe looking at this outside the context of all the things, other things that might be happening, other risks and opportunities, how is this helping people make effective decisions? I don't think it is. If we look at Koso again, identify the challenges, but you also need to be able to make quality decisions, not only to protect, but also to create value and address the risks to creating that value in order to achieve objectives. We need to understand what might happen. And this is, again, where risk management comes in. It needs to be integrated into setting the right objectives and strategies. How can you know you're setting the right objective if you don't understand the things that might happen? If you don't understand what risk you're going to have to take in order to achieve them. You may set unattainable, unrealistic objectives. And I've seen this. There was one company where management could see that the company was just really not doing great. It was stagnant, basically. And so they put forward realistic objectives to the board, which would preserve value, create a little bit, while they waited to find a new approach of new products and services to get the market excited again. The board said that won't work. The stakeholders, the investors, are going to be very upset, and they're going to push our stock into a downturn. Our role as board members is to grow the value of the company, and this is not going to do that. So they changed the objectives of management of the company and made them significantly higher, which are actually unattainable. The opportunities were not there. So what happened was the management said, okay, in order to keep my job, I need to find a way to hit these objectives, even though they're unrealistic. And so they started taking more and more risk, which didn't work. And in fact, they didn't even meet the objectives that they had initially proposed. So we've got to set the right objectives and then execute. Executing means what? It means making the decisions about taking the right risks for success, taking the right risks within the context of what we're trying to do. We're trying to move forward. We're trying to grow the business. We're trying to preserve as well as and create value and achieve our objectives. So what are the risks that we need to take within the context of other risks and opportunities in order to be successful. How can we make intelligent decisions? Now, when it comes to the risk officer, the risk practitioner, he or she are very much aware that people are making decisions all the time. And maybe it's taking the company in the right way, maybe it's taking the company in the wrong way. But you can't help if all you're doing is looking at one risk at a time and evaluating that one risk at a time, when the world is not so simple. The world is more complex. You've got a lot of things going on. And in order to make intelligent and informed decisions, you have to understand all of these things, all the risks that might affect and then flow out of the decisions, the options, the alternatives you're considering, and the opportunities of it. Why you would take risk, why you're even in business to start with, where's the value being created by the business? And all of that's got to be taken into context. It's a complicated picture, it's a complex picture, and we need to help people make the right decisions, understanding all these different elements, all the different risks, all the different opportunities, and how they may be affected as we go forward. Decisions need risk information. And we can't, coming back to this one, we can't, as risk officers, provide risk information for every single decision that's being made in the company, because their decisions are being made at all levels of the extended enterprise, not only in our business, but in our service organizations, our partners, our channel partners. Decisions are being made all the time, and those decisions can have a significant effect on the success of the organization, both protecting and creating value. We can't do everything. So how do we make this work? We need to understand where is our information most needed? Where can we help the most? And that's an important question to be asking. How can we as risk practitioners help the leaders of our organization, the decision makers, the board members? How can we help them be successful themselves and also lead to the success of the organization? How can we help them? Well, probably where the most significant decisions are being made, where they are most in need of our analysis and our insight into the effects of different potential events and situations. We need to help the decision makers get the information they need, because we can't always be there, but perhaps we can help them understand better where to go look for it, how to find it themselves. In other words, teach them to fish instead of always relying upon ourselves to give them the fish. Teach them to use analytics, teach them to use reports, to know who has the information and where to get it. So make it easier for them, even if we can't provide it ourselves. Provide tailored information. If you think about that list of risks or the heat map, it's a generic list. Is it particularly useful for each individual making a decision? Does the head of HR, the head of marketing, the head of IT, the head of finance, do they all need the same information for the decisions they're making? Even if it's the same or very similar information, for example, on revenue projections, do they need it in the same way and in the same level of detail? Or if we don't understand how they're going to use it, we can't necessarily give them the right information for their needs. So ask them what they need. Ask them where they are finding difficulty in making decisions and how we can help. And then listen. We don't listen nearly enough. Listen to them talk about their business, talk about their difficulties, and then think, how can we make their life easier? How can we make their decisions of higher quality? How can we change what we do to accommodate their needs? So we need to be able to adapt. And that In fact, but all of this is in the ISO principles, that risk management has to be tailored to the organization, has to be flexible and adapt as the organization changes, as business condition changes, because risks are all changing all the time. So we have to be ready to adapt, throw away what might have worked last year to focus on what needs to be done this year. We need to be agile. What I mean by that is to be able to move with agility, not follow some agile methodology, but we need to be able to move with agility and speed, give people what they need when they need it, adapt it, change it, and be flexible, responsive. If they say, well, this isn't exactly what I need, don't say, well, that's tough, this is what you're getting. No. See if we can change it to give them what they need. And then as they continue to work with it, adapt and be flexible so that you're continuing to give them what they need, or in fact, they learn how to find it themselves. Because our job is not to be the provider and owner of all risk information. Our job is to help people make the quality decisions that they need for success. So risk management is about helping people set the right objectives, set the right strategies for achieving those objectives, helping them make informed and intelligent decisions. Because it's only through those decisions that organizations can reach success. Help them take the right level of the right risks. And that means breaking down our own bias against risk. Risk is not always to be managed and mitigated. Sometimes you need to take it. Sometimes you need to increase it because it's the right thing to do for the business. And we need to be thinking about, if this was our business, if we were running this, if we owned it, what would we do? Would we take the risk? Would we increase the risk? Or would we just avoid? What else would we do? But basically, think like a business person and help the organization take the right risks so that they can achieve objectives and be successful. Not just personally, but as a team, as a department, and as an organization. That's our job, is to help the organization be successful, not just avoid open manhole covers. The board has responsibility for risk governance. We need to understand again and help them. That doesn't mean managing risk, even though how attractive that is, even if that's what the consultants and the external auditors are talking about, that you need to manage cyber risk. We need to manage the business, help them understand what is happening, that people are cognizant, they're aware of risk and opportunity when they're making decisions, and help the board understand that, help them with their oversight. And again, their oversight is not to manage the risk themselves. Their job is to make sure that management, including the risk practitioner, is doing a good job of understanding, evaluating, and then taking the right level of the right risks. Make sure your believers believe that what is happening when it comes to risk management is actually helping them. Going back to that Deloitte survey, get to the point where you don't have to persuade them, that they can see it, they can feel it, they can experience how information about risk and opportunity is helping them to not only develop but then execute on business strategies so they can be successful. Peter Drucker certainly believed that was the key for success. And so do I. I hope if you like what I have to say here, you'll follow me. I blog once or twice a week. And of course, I've got a whole ton of books, which I'd love to see people read and give you some feedback on some of the thinking that's in those. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you in future presentations. And certainly I encourage you to make full use of all of the presentations here on RAW.